podcast. I'm your host, Richie O'Leary, and joined as always when we're talking Penn State football, our senior writer, Dylan Callahan Crawley. Dylan, it has been a exciting week for Penn State as they land one, two, three new commits since our last pod, or four new commits since our last pod. Also, three from the 2025 class and one from the 2026 class. So let's break those down first before we jump into who could be next. Starting with the first one, Max Granville, coming up out of Texas. I know we talked about him in the past. I know you've mentioned him a couple times. How big of a commitment is this to beat out several southwestern schools?
Yeah, and I apologize if there's a little bit of an echo in my room in the midst of moving here. So I'm just currently recording in an empty living room, my old place for now until we get internet installed. But yeah, Max Granville, I mean, what a pickup for Penn State here, beating out the likes of specifically Baylor, Oklahoma, and Texas A&M, the latter two being the top contenders here besides Penn State. And yeah, this is one where Penn State had Granville at the top of their defensive end board, was their top target overall, probably at that position. One, they wanted really badly. And, for a while, it was always, Penn State was in a good spot for Granville, but it was just a matter of were they going to have enough to pull him out of Texas from the likes of A&M and Oklahoma. Those two programs set high bars in his recruitment. But Penn State was always in the running. They were always up there. He came up for an official visit in early end of May, early June. And that official visit changed everything. I think it put Penn State in the lead, and it was something that Texas A&M and Oklahoma just were not able to surpass Penn State. I mean, both programs have, I'm assuming, made but made better NIL offers probably to Granville than Penn State could have made. But Granville sees what Penn State does schematically or will do schematically under Tom Allen. And he sees what Penn State has done historically at that defensive end position, especially over the last few years. And that was enough for him to feel comfortable committed to Penn State.
Yeah, I mean, the bloodlines are there. His dad is a former Duke linebacker and captain, played in the NFL with the Bengals in Houston. His mom played at NC State as a volleyball player. His brother is at Illinois State as a linebacker. So I don't want to say they've always been Northerners, but for the most part, they're a lot more Northern, or most of their life, they're being a lot more Northern than the Texas area.
Yeah, and his dad, Billy, I think it's Billy, is originally from New Jersey. So that's something that was worth noting. I think we noted that a while ago on the pod, that he has family ties to the region, which could always help. And, I think this is the type of prospects Penn State is going to have to target in the future in general too, as well. His kid, obviously, NIL deals always are nice to have, but they will have to target these high end prospects who NIL isn't the most important thing to them. For a guy like Max, I obviously don't know his family's background financially, but I'm sure they're fine. Seeing with his dad playing in the NFL and live in a very nice area of Texas. But either way, NIL was never a major part of this recruitment. And when it's not that big of a factor, Penn State has as good of a chance as anybody, in my opinion, to land these high-end prospects. And he's just the next in line with that. I think this is a huge pickup, obviously, for the Nittany Lions. He has a chance to develop into a really high-end defensive end for the Nittany Lions under Tom Allen and Deion Barnes there. Very, very big win for Deion Barnes, who we'll talk about in a little bit. But for a while there, it was very uncertain of how this defensive line board was going to shake for Penn State, even as of 2 weeks ago. And now, here we're sitting on July 1st. Things are looking pretty good at that position group.
Yeah, no, very big get. Super athletic kid. I think we got him 6'3", 220 right now. Obviously, has to pack on a little bit of weight, but I'm looking. He's also competes in track and field. Does the shot put, 110-meter hurdles, 300-meter hurdles, the 4x400 relay. Does the high jump. Like, he's done just about all of the things for track and field. So this is just a super athletic kid and someone that I'm pretty sure they just want to add some weight to, and then let's see what he could do at the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Moving on to the next one, another defensive end, Jayden Woods, another area I don't think we've seen Penn State hit in quite some time in Kansas, maybe ever since the Rivals era started. It just seems like Kansas is just such a wild one. But number 212 in the country, Jayden Woods from Mill Valley High School, and like I said, Kansas. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, this was one that I would say was a little bit more unforeseen from us than compared to Max Granville. Like I said, with Granville, we always knew Penn State always had a chance. It was just a matter what would they have enough to nab Granville out of Texas. With Woods, this was one that kind of emerged over the last couple weeks that Penn State, had a great chance of landing. They had him high on their board. Absolutely, they wanted him. Other big schools in this one. Wisconsin, Purdue, Tennessee. So, I mean, you look at it, some of the bigger regional schools there are out of it, which makes you not question him as a prospect, but just worth noting. I mean, Nebraska and Texas A&M and Texas Tech. Well, not Texas Tech, but Texas A&M. You get what I'm saying. The local programs, Oklahoma State, not really showing a ton of interest, or perhaps you just didn't want to stay in region. But at the end of the day, Wisconsin, Purdue, Tennessee was our 3 official visits. But went on that official visit at the beginning of the month, and Penn State, like with Granville, was able to do enough on that official visit to, last through the rest of his official visit schedule. And the vision that, James Franklin, Tom Allen, Deion Barnes sold to Woods was enough to convince him to come to Penn State and join Max Granville and Cortez Harris on that defensive line.
Another guy that's a super athlete, does track and field, but also is a very, very talented wrestler. 170 wins and 3 losses so far in his high school career. I love when these defensive linemen, offensive linemen are wrestlers, just because it just shows they have such great handwork. It just makes such a difference.
That's a huge thing for James Franklin and his staff too. They love the multiple sport athletes, offensive linemen, defensive linemen, wrestling. Your speed, your skill positions, track and field, or basketball, even baseball. Absolutely. And Woods does have a very good offshoot. Don't get me wrong on that. Alabama, Florida, Iowa, LSU, Miami, Michigan State, Nebraska, Notre Dame, Oklahoma State, Oregon, Tennessee, A&M, USC, Wisconsin here. So very good offer sheet overall, and a really nice recruiting win for Deion Barnes.
Yeah, very physical kid too. I'm watching his tape in the background. Very physical, really energetic. I feel like he needs to bend a little bit better, but that you can make that argument for just about every lineman on both sides of the ball.
Right.
But yeah, no, I like this one a lot. He's more of I feel like a long-term guy. I feel like his ceiling is more of like year 3, let him redshirt year 1, year 2, then year 3 hits, and then it's like, hey, potential starter there. So we'll have to wait and see. But very physical, very he's just right off the edge. It's beautiful. Now he stands up on the edge a lot, but I think you'll probably see him more as a traditional, like, hand in the ground type defensive end in the future. But regardless, a very, very good get. Number 212 in the country. So it's another solid one. That's 250 kids, 250 defensive linemen too. So let's finish with the last one here. I shouldn't say last one technically. Last one in this recruiting class, and that's 3-star wide receiver Jeff Exinor, coming up from McDonough High School down in Maryland. Penn State's kind of created a pipeline down there, it seems like.
Yeah, so I mean, this was a nice recruiting win for Marquis Sagans, get another kid from McDonough to Penn State. Of course, Penn State looked like earlier last week they were going to land cornerback Brandon Finney also out of McDonough, and then in the 11th hour, Oregon comes in really and just kind of swoops that one. Anybody who subscribed to us over at Happy Valley Insider, we were basically live updating that as updates were coming in. From what I was told, we were the first ones on Tuesday, Monday, whatever it was, to say, like, hey, Oregon is here making a push now, and this is going to be something to watch here coming up for a decision. And ultimately, he landed with Oregon, which I don't think Penn State's going to back off Brandon Finney. I think we haven't heard about that. I don't think we've heard the last from that recruitment yet. So that'll be something just to tuck behind our ear and come back to down the road. But let's get to Jeff Exinor. Yeah, this was, one of Penn State's higher end wide receiver targets this season, one that they've been recruiting for a long time, led for almost the entirety of his recruitment. One could argue Virginia Tech kind of took the lead there for maybe a month in April and May, but then heading into his official visit, it still seemed Penn State was in the lead. It takes that official visit to Happy Valley. Really, I think Penn State secured the recruitment there. He still took visits to Syracuse, Maryland. Maryland felt solid, I think, coming into decision week, but Penn State just was able to hold on to all the momentum that they built up, not just from that official visit, but for his entire recruitment. I mean, his offer came. Oh, jeez. I can't find where
I think it was,
but
go on.
But his first visit to camp was in June of 2022. So they've been recruiting him for 2 years plus at this point. So this was one that they've been in a really great spot for a long time, and it was a matter of probably when and not if. And they were able to do enough, like I said, to land his commitment after Virginia Tech kind of tried to sway momentum their way, but was unsuccessfully able to get truly into the driver's seat for Exinor. So this is a big win for Marcus Hagans because Penn State, obviously did not have the greatest year on the field last year. I think their 2024 class at wide receiver was all things pretty good. Looking back on it, I mean, you last year they signed, Jaya Brown, high end talent there. Peter Gonzalez has a ton of potential, and Tyzier Denmark, of course. But this now with Exinor, they have a couple other guys potentially in the wings about to commit in the next couple of weeks. This could be a really nice recruiting class for Marquise Hagans as Penn State heads into the fall. And we'll see how the wide receivers do on the field. But after a tough 2024, Marcus Hagans potentially looks like he has Penn State on the verge of a really nice wide receiver class.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, they beat out a bunch of different schools with this one, specifically probably Virginia Tech, Maryland, and it's kind of really it. But as a junior, 76 receptions, 926 receiving yards, 11 touchdowns. Also plays basketball, another dual sport athlete. Averaged 12 and 5 on the basketball court. So like the athleticism's there for a guy that's 6'3", 205. Great size to begin with. I think this is a kid that could be a 4-star again. I know he was originally a couple.
I think he have. Yeah, he's tough because he is explosive. He is big, but he doesn't have high. I mean, if he had a little bit better speed, I think it would be an easy 4-star, even high 4-star. I think it will be interesting this year what his speed looks like in his senior season, and that'll probably determine where he ultimately ends up in the rankings. But I think this is a really nice addition from a need to have those bigger bodied wide receivers if you're Penn State, something they've really been lacking the last few years. So that'll be very good for them. And like you said, he is an explosive athlete, a good athlete overall. Had 3 Division I basketball offers from Siena, Radford, and North Carolina A&T. So this was a kid who had the ability to play D1, go D1 at 2 different schools.
Yeah. And then last but not least is actually a 2026 kid. They go out to California, Mission Hills High School, California. Troy Huhn, number 105 in the country, number 7 overall pro-style quarterback, number 14 overall in California. Now, this is a kid that visited Penn State twice this calendar year so far. He was back on campus in March, got back to campus again this past month, June 19th. And this sounds like Penn State straight up beat out a lot of good competition, including Ohio State, who hosted them the day before Penn State in June this past month.
Yeah, so this was a really interesting recruitment when you look at it, and for both sides. One, you look at Troy going back a while. He's set for a while. His top 3 was Texas, Michigan, and Penn State, or not his top 3, but 3 schools that were standing out to him a couple months ago were Texas, Michigan, and Penn State. I shouldn't have said top 3. He never really said top schools.
Yeah, unofficial top 3.
But yeah, those 3 schools were amongst the top programs standing out to him. Well, over the last few weeks, you look at it. We were tracking this pretty well, I would say, over on our side about the quarterback dominoes. But you look at the quarterback dominoes.
Hmm.
Bell commits to Texas a couple weeks ago. Brady Hart commits to Michigan, which kind of left Penn State in a really strong spot for Hunt. There was this point where it looked like Troy Hunt was going to potentially go to Texas, and that was going to let Penn State potentially land Bell. Bell ultimately committed to Texas instead, and Hunt obviously lands at Penn State, which I think both are fantastic quarterbacks. You can't go wrong with either.
Hmm.
So on that end of things, it kind of fell right into Penn State's lap, or Troy fell right into Penn State's lap per se there, with how Texas and Michigan's quarterback recruitment is going. But for Penn State, you look at it, their top two quarterback, not top two, but their other top quarterback targets, Bell, who we talked about quite a bit, obviously, and just did,
Hmm.
goes to Texas, and then Brady Hart goes to Michigan. So it just really worked out that these two kind of fell in each other's respective laps in that way. And,
Hmm.
they both really liked each other. They both Penn State loves Hunt's potential. Prototypical big body quarterback, 6'4", 205, but has some mobility, good arm.
Yeah.
And then with Hunt, he loves what Penn State does offensively because it's very similar to what he does currently at Mission Hills High School in San Marcos.
Hmm.
So it was really just kind of a match made in heaven, I guess you could say, for these two sides, just with how the quarterback boards fell. Ohio State was trying to get into this recruitment because you look at Ohio State is kind of in a iffy spot in their own quarterback recruitment right now,
Hmm.
with a bunch of top quarterbacks already committed. I mean, last time I looked at it, 10 of the top 14 quarterbacks were committed already in
Yeah.
2026 recruiting class.
That's crazy.
Now, Ohio State's still in it for some of those uncommitted guys, but they're in a not a dicey situation yet, but they're in a tough situation. If they miss on another one or two of these guys, which one of their top targets is Faison Brandon. He's a Tennessee lead, so
Hmm.
Ohio State does have a little bit of a question mark on what they're going to do in 2026 right now. But Penn State doesn't have to worry about that. They got a top 10 quarterback, borderline top 100 prospect as their quarterback in the 2026 class. Pair him with Messiah Mickens, and that's a really good start to Penn State's 2026 recruiting class. Plus, Penn State hasn't landed a California prospect since 2014. Now they land two within 15 days of each other. It's funny how recruiting works sometimes.
Yeah. Now, this is kind of going to lead into our next topic. I want to talk more about the 2025 class, but before we do that, do we think they go after a second quarterback in 2026? Just because I know they said that they're still going to recruit Bell despite his commitment. They're probably still going to recruit Faison Brandon, if I had to guess. I know they wanted two in this cycle. It sounds like they're only going to get one in this cycle in 2025. Would they take two in 2026?
I think that's a tough one. I think right now I'd probably lean towards no right now. I think just because of the level of quarterback Troy is, and I imagine he would prefer to be a part of one quarterback class. I don't think he would, I don't think he would, decommit if Penn State decided to take a second. But right now I'd probably lean towards no. I mean, if they do, it's not going to be any type of big name quarterback. And I think Hunt's going to be pretty solidly committed to Penn State. I don't think there should be any worries about him eventually decommitting. He seems pretty locked in to Penn State right now. Now, we said that about a lot of recruitments, obviously. Not all go that way, but I think that one's locked in.
All right, cool. So now going back to 2025, I just want to go position by position group and kind of talk about who's left. So let's just start with quarterback. It's done. Running back, it's done.
Yeah.
Wide receiver is where it gets interesting. Now, we mentioned they just landed Exinor. It matches him with Lyric Samuel. Yep. Two big body wide receivers. Dude, now where do they go kind of next? I know Matthew Outen's one guy. I know Kobe Howard. There's Samari Reed. But, who's kind of next in that bunch?
Yeah. Yeah, so, we can kind of just go through each of the guys who visited the position and get the latest there. So we'll work backwards from the June 21st week. So Samari Reed, Penn State's done a really good job in that recruitment. I would probably lean towards Clemson being the pick right now. We'll see how it breaks for Penn State there and how the receiver board breaks. I mean, if Penn State goes to run on wide receivers in the next couple of days, there may be some guys who get shut out here. But Samari Reed right now, I may lean towards Clemson. I know Clemson really wanted him or Cortez Harris to be in their wide receiver class, and I believe they have one spot left in their wide receiver class this year. So if they, I think Cortez Harris maybe lean towards Oklahoma. I last saw, or is it not Cortez Harris? Cortez Mills, Cortez Mills, the 4-star wide receiver.
Yeah.
I believe Cortez Mills is he's trying towards Oklahoma, which kind of would allow Clemson to be the spot for Reed. So I would say Clemson maybe right now is the leader there. Kobe Howard is an interesting one. Let's actually come back to him in a moment. Nashawn Montgomery. Penn State's always been in a really nice spot for him, but I think he lands in Florida. Taz Williams Jr. out of Texas, a Pittsburgh native. We have future casted him to Penn State. Like I said just before, depending on how the wide receiver board breaks over the next couple weeks, depending if they go on a run, could determine how many of these guys are a take or not. But right now, I think Penn State lands Taz Williams Jr. Let's see. Philip Bell out of California.
By the way, Taz Williams.
July 13th commitment date.
Yep, exactly. So looking pretty good there.
Philip Bell out of California. I don't think that one probably happens, but I haven't checked in on that one in a hot minute. Corey Sims just committed to USC. Quincy Porter committed last month to Ohio State, and that, of course, leaves us with Lex Cyrus, who I still feel very good about Penn State's chances here. I think a commitment could come in the next couple days this week, early next week at the latest, I would have to guess. Anytime a recruitment goes on this long, you do get kind of doubts in your head a little bit about, why haven't they secured a commitment yet? I mean, he's been at campus a ton. He knows what Penn State has to offer. But I still feel very, very good about what Penn State's chances head into a decision. South Carolina's the threat here. And South Carolina did a good job with their official visit. Definitely gave him quite a bit to think about, but I think Penn State's going to win out that recruitment when he eventually makes a decision. So, I mean, you're looking at Lex Cyrus here, Jeff Exinor's in, obviously Lyric Samuel's in.
Mm-hmm.
I think they land Taz Williams, and they could also land Kobe Howard, potentially Samari Reed, depending on how that breaks up.
Mm-hmm.
It has a really good chance to be a really good wide receiver class for Marquise Higgins.
Yeah. So now it looks like you said, Taz Williams is July 13th. We know Lex Cyrus is supposed to decide this week. We don't know when technically. So if you land those two, is that it, or do you go for a fifth? It's a big question mark. I feel like.
So we got Williams, and we got
hypothetically Williams and Lex Cyrus are committed. Do you go for fifth?
I think they would probably take Kobe Howard at that point. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say it's a lock, but I think they would probably take Kobe Howard, who, by the way, has posted on Twitter recently that he is set to make some sort of announcement. Mm-hmm. So we'll see if that's an announcement of an announcement. But either way, Penn State could be in a really nice spot there with Kobe Howard. Ole Miss is a threat here as well. I think it was pretty neck and neck coming out of that official visit. Yeah. So I'm interested to see which way this one goes. But we know that Penn State, we know that Kobe Howard was very high on Penn State coming out of that official visit. I would say he almost, I think, probably tried to commit, but ultimately did not decide to. Yeah. I think that'd be fair to say based off our intel. So we'll see what happens, but it could be. I think they would potentially take him.
I was going to say, it sounds like it's more so if Penn State wants him or not. If Penn State wants him, it sounds like they get him. If they don't want him, then that's it. Four wide receiver class, and there you go. But moving on a little bit to tight end, they have Matt Henderson committed. I know they wanted Andrew Olish, and I'm sure they're still going to push him, even if he commits elsewhere. I don't think he committed yet. But he sounds like he's leaning to Michigan at the moment. Even if he does commit, like I said, they're still going to push him. Do you think that's their one and only second tight end target, and then that's really it?
Yeah, so quickly before I forget, going back to receiver quickly, Matthew Alden
yes.
set to announce on
Today.
Monday, depending on what time we get this pod out, maybe old news or not. But right now, FutureCast points to Virginia Tech. We expect the Hokies to win that recruitment. Tough recruiting loss for Penn State. He has a lot of high potential. Probably have him a bit underrated in my opinion. He's probably a 4-star my opinion,
Yeah.
but I think as long as Penn State can land, a Cyrus, a Williams, potentially a Howard, they're in a still a really good spot. Going back tight end, yeah, it looks like now with Brody Lennon off the board, committed to Ohio State, and Olish leaning towards Michigan. I think this may end up being a one tight end class with Matt Henderson, which is fine. Penn State obviously has a ton of depth at that position, so it's not a major necessity to take 2 tight ends. So they, historically do like to take 2 tight ends. If they do choose to eventually push for a second tight end, a name I could see them potentially push for as soon as let me pull it up here. Give me 1 second.
Yep, you're good.
You
talking about the kid that camped?
I forget the last name off the top of my head. All right, we would look towards Purdue's class for this potential target, which would be tight end Brian Kordovich out of Cleveland, Ohio. He camped at Penn State earlier in June. Had a really good camp. Penn State did not offer. He visited Purdue, ended up committing. But if they do push for a second tight end, I could see him potentially being a potential flip guy.
Okay.
But if they don't, I don't think they need to push for tight end. I think they're more than fine with just taking Henderson.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Offensive line seems like we're kind of in a similar boat there. They have a couple guys committed already. And Owen Alciani, Mike Troutman, and who am I missing? Oh, Brady O'Hara. Now it seems like they're all in on Malachi Goodman, who's down to I think a top 4, top 5-ish type of schools. Where do they stand?
At this point, I would say it's probably Malachi Goodman or bust.
Okay.
Going forward.
Well,
I think
very important.
I think he's kind of like that last guy they have. I'm not sure if they miss on Goodman, they're going to necessarily go out and need to find another offensive lineman. I think they would just at that point accept the class they have. If somebody emerges in the fall, absolutely. But I don't think they would, make it not a priority, but they're not going to take a chance on an offensive lineman just to take a chance if they don't feel good about him. Or somebody that they feel is a reach, I guess you could say. I think it's Malachi Goodman, and I think they keep an eye and continue to talk with of course, I'm blanking now.
Give me a
legacy.
Michael Carroll.
Yeah, Michael Carroll. I think they continue to work on Michael Carroll. A couple of days ago, our rivals analysts ranked commitments by the chances of a potential flip happening, and Carroll was a guy who they had as one of those guys that could definitely has a higher chance of flipping down the road than some others. So, like ranking the strength commitments here, they ranked 21 guys. Michael Carroll's 18.
There's always a chance.
And they point out he's from Pennsylvania, has strong ties to Penn State, and once the season arrives, this is one that could go Penn State's way, or it could stay Alabama's way. Like what does Alabama look like on the field this year on a new coaching staff? What does Penn State do on the field this year? So I think it's Michael Carroll, Matt, and Malachi Goodman, and those are the two that they're going to focus on from here till signing day. Goodman, I'm assuming, makes a decision sometime in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I actually have a little bit of an update on that one. I was talking to his coaches yesterday, and he told me he's looking to decide at the end of July, so that adds up with your couple weeks. Probably that last week. It's hard to say. He's down to 3 right now, and will likely pick one. based on that. So it sounds like Auburn, USC, Penn State. It's going to be tough. Those are three different areas completely. If he wants to stay home, obviously, it's going to be Penn State. If he doesn't, it's a guessing game. I know USC made quite the impression on him. I know Auburn made a really good impression on him. They've always been pretty high on his list. So just a wait and see game. That's basically it at the moment. But moving to defensive lines, so they landed 2 defensive ends this past week. They were going to go for 1 defensive tackle. There's a couple names still on the board. Where do we think that kind of ends up?
Yeah. Well, right now, I think the odds-on favorite would be Miami Central defensive tackle Randy Adarica.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the one where we have to watch closely on a defensive tackle. Jarquez Carter is set to announce later this month, the 16th, I believe. Depending on who you ask, it seems like the top schools are Penn State, Ohio State, or Penn State, Ohio State, Miami.
Mm-hmm.
FutureCast currently reads Miami. I would probably lean towards Miami maybe being the pick right now, just because Ohio State obviously is after Maxwell Roy, who I do not believe has announced any commitments yet, but good spot for them there. Now, it'll be interesting to see what happens if Adarica commits, and then if Jarquez Carter went in, would they be willing to take both?
Mm-hmm.
Both are obviously very high-end prospects, but right now I'd probably put the higher, chance on Randy Adarica, 6'4", 265 out of Miami Central. Somebody we have future casted to Penn State. Somebody that Penn State has honestly led for a while. You head back into late April, early May.
Mm-hmm.
He had an article with Adam Gorney, Adam Gorney had an article that talked about Randy Adarica. And at the time, he said that Penn State was the leader for Randy Adarica. And he was even thinking about a commitment before official visits. He took his official visits, and it still seems like that Penn State is the team to beat here. So Penn State in a very good spot for a top 150 prospect, number 132 overall,
Mm-hmm.
top 30 player in the state of Florida, a top 10 defensive tackle. This would be a huge recruiting win for Penn State and Deion Barnes.
Yeah, you're not kidding. And then that would be probably it, because they have Cortez, they have Jayden Woods, they have who am I missing? I'm missing someone. Oh, Max Granville. So between those three, do they even go for another defensive end? Because we know they're only going to take 1 tackle. Is that probably it, I would say?
Yeah, I think they would continue to monitor Zahir Mathis, who they hosted for an official visit. I think they would continue to monitor him. The odd man out may be Yvonne Kamaju, who we do have future casted to Penn State,
Mm-hmm.
but if they view him as a defensive tackle, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So if they have a guy in Randy Adarica committed, I think Kamaju may be the odd guy out there.
Okay.
Ioze Epineza, I don't think was probably Penn State ever had a really true chance of landing, but I think if he wanted in, that would be a hard one to turn down, probably.
Oh yeah.
So outside of a guy like that or Zahir Mathis, I think Penn State is probably done at defensive end if they land a Randy Adarica.
Gotcha.
Going forward.
Linebacker, that's where it gets a little interesting. Now, they had 3 committed for a long time. They lost DJ McClary, who flipped recently. They still have Alex Tatch and Deshaun Burnett, who could actually be a defensive end at the next level at some point. But both of those 2 will be coming in as linebackers. Who are they kind of looking at to fill that third linebacker role?
Well, they only hosted 2 uncommitted linebackers this past month in Ty Jackson out of Florida, who I believe will stay in the South, and then LeVar Arrington II, who we have listed as a defensive end on Rivals.
Mm-hmm.
Penn State, I believe, does view him as a linebacker right now. I think they would take LeVar Arrington II. I think it just comes down to, does he want to, undertake that pressure? I guess you could say
there'll be a lot.
I mean, there will be if he does commit to Penn State, there will be a lot of unfair pressure that comes with being the son of LeVar Arrington, and if he chose to commit to UCLA or Tennessee, his other 2 official visits, I don't think anybody could blame him. It's all going to be if he goes to Penn State, it's all going to be about can he become what his father was, and honestly, probably not. His father's one of the
That's
best players in Penn State history. He's one of the best linebackers
mm-hmm.
of the last 40 years in college football. So it's going to be interesting what he says. But I would not blame the kid at all if he doesn't want to, follow per se in his dad's footsteps, because it's going to come with a lot of unfair pressure and a lot of unfair expectations from fans, in my opinion, of what he can be just because of the last name. That being said, I think Penn State's in a good spot here. I would probably put them as the team to beat right now. If they land him, I think Penn State would absolutely take him. I think he's a solid player, has a good chance to become a good player at the next level.
Mm-hmm.
But accepting those expectations and the pressure that's going to come with committing to Penn State is, I'm going to have to assume, is absolutely something that he's going to have to think deeply about before he makes a decision.
You say team to beat. Are we close to a future cast there?
It's hard to say just because he's a quiet kid. I mean, you look at his rivals page. There's one interview article with them, and that was back in October of last year. So really hard kid to get a hold of. Not want to talk a ton to the media. So be interested to see what happens. Hard to say on the future cast.
Gotcha. Next up, cornerback Xavier Thomas, Darius Dixon, Jameer Joseph. Hell of a haul so far. Do we think they're done right there, or do we think they try to get one more in?
I think they're going to continue to push for Brandon Finney, try to flip him from Oregon, which we talked about a little earlier. But besides that, I think they're probably done at quarterback, at least for now, unless somebody else emerges here in the second half of the recruiting cycle.
Gotcha. And then safety, sounds like safety's probably done too, with Antonio Branch Jr. and Braswell Thomas committed, although Braswell could play wide receiver at the next level.
Yeah, I think they're done there. I think Braswell will end up playing safety for Penn State, and pairing him with Antonio Branch. Now, Rashad Johnson, I should mention, is somebody to watch. Athlete. That seems like it's a Penn State Georgia battle. I would probably lean towards Georgia being the pick right now, but Penn State absolutely still on that one.
Okay.
So that'll be something to watch as well. I think Johnson may be more of a cornerback for Penn State. I have to go back and check. But either way,
regardless,
Rashad Johnson and Brandon Finney are the two names I would be watching going forward. Other than those two, I think they're pretty much done at corner in the secondary.
Gotcha. All right, cool. So that pretty much wraps up the class, or we'll wrap up the class, I should say. Should get some more news over the next couple of weeks, whether it be wide receiver, whether it be linebacker, whether it be defensive tackle, hopefully sooner than later. But
Rashad Johnson's a safety.
Gotcha.
Which I think if he wanted in, they would take him.
Be hard to say no.
Yeah.
The 2025 class, that's pretty much how it's going to wrap up. 2026 is going to be interesting. Maybe we'll do a pod on that next week, breaking down some of the top targets in 2026, because one of them looked really good at Rivals 5-star in Kevin Brown, and it sounds like he's leaning Penn State early. It's very, very early. I need to say that out loud, but it sounds like they're in a good spot early on. But they did Penn State technically landed another commitment too. I forgot to mention, in Justin Hauser, in a basketball recruit.
Yeah.
3-star center, big man, out of Pennsylvania. I think he's at the Phelps School now. Seems like a solid get.
Yeah.
Seems like a pretty solid get. Can hit the mid-range deep shot too. He's a pretty good 3-point shooter. Good size. Needs to pack on some pounds for the Big Ten, but I want to say he's a pretty good shooter though. So good addition. First addition.
Yeah, it's a solid addition. Some much needed height for Penn State. 6 foot. Center, but 6'11", 215. Obviously has a chance to continue to grow a little bit here over the next year or so. So we'll see if he can break that 7-foot barrier. But good pickup for Penn State here. And I believe that was the first commitment in the
for 2025.
2025 class.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We'll see what they can do. I'm kind of intrigued to see if he can kind of build a little bit of momentum after an up and down year. There's some high moments, some really low moments, but they got a solid team coming back. I think that they're going to be higher than people think. I think everyone's putting them at the bottom of the Big Ten, and I think that's a fair assumption at first, but I do think they're going to surprise some people and maybe still finish in that bottom part, in that bottom section, but I think you'll see progress too. So I think Mike Rhodes is the guy for the job here.
Absolutely. And let's see if I have anything else quickly.
I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, depending on the next time we record, I don't know when, I forget the exact date it becomes official, but very soon, the Big Ten will officially be adding the new 4
as of today, right?
Member institutions. Yeah, I think so.
July 1st.
Does not look like it does not show just yet on the Big Ten site, so maybe it's a noon thing. But either way,
yeah, I know it's supposed to be
Oregon, USC
today as a midnight technically, because I know the ACC also tweeted out their new editions at midnight. So I'm assuming they're going to have a new commercial. Ooh, that would be nice if they reveal that today.
Yeah. So no official tweet from the Big Ten just yet, but I'm sure there'll be one at some point today. But so welcome to USC, Oregon, Washington, and UCLA into the Big Ten. It's going to be interesting to see how that all truly works, because these travel schedules are going to become really interesting for basically every sport that's not football.
Yeah, it's madness.
I mean, we just saw Washington's head baseball coach leave for the pitching coach job at Texas A&M. Obviously not a major sport, but leaving a head coaching job in a major conference for a pitching coaching job at another school is something to see. Now, was a travel schedule something that was considered there? Maybe somewhere, but at the end of the day, still something amazing to see that happen. We see it happen in football, though. Maybe not for power programs, but we've seen it in football as well. Buffalo's head coach left for an Alabama analyst job this year, which is another small note to add there. Now that analysts can coach both in practices and in games, that could be the next arms race per se we now see in college football going forward. Is which school can hire the most analysts, and get that extra coaching.
Yeah, it's very interesting, because I know a lot of people have been asking, like, oh my god, like everyone can. There's no limit on staffs. Who are they going to add? And it's like, no, like they have like a bunch of analysts already, but now they can finally coach officially. They weren't allowed to coach in practice. They weren't allowed to coach during the games. Now they're allowed to actually be involved more, which is going to be very, very helpful.
Yeah.
Now there might be a couple more people in your ear about play calling, but as the OC, I think you kind of just tune most of them out and just figure out. It's up to you at the end of the day. But yeah, I'm intrigued to see how this is going to work, because Penn State always has a pretty damn good list of analysts, and I think that's going to be a pretty big deal there.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And the one I want to bring up quickly is Frank Leonard. I mean, just legend. The fact that he's going to be able to, just that he's going to be able to help Phil Trautwein down, just not in meetings, but on the field and practices. And I'm assuming in games that it's still going to have to be 12 or whatever, however many men on the field, and anybody else can coach from the box.
Yeah.
Via the phone, I guess. But
just if someone sees something, it's just going to be someone sees something different. Oh, he's blitzing, like watch, and then all of a sudden.
But just for Penn State on the offensive line, now that Frank Leonard can assist Phil Trautwein in practices on a daily basis, now I think is going to be huge, because Frank is obviously one of a legendary offensive line coaches, a tremendous resume. So that's going to be good. He already, is always active in the camps for Penn State already. And it's really fun to watch from a coach's perspective. So, that's going to be big for Penn State. Going to be big for schools like Alabama, who have like 40 analysts.
Yeah, that's where it gets interesting. It's not just Penn State's advantage; it's everyone's advantage almost. But that's pretty much it. I'm sure we'll have some more relatively soon, whether it be a commitment piece, if I had to guess. I would assume we'll hear some things. Like I said before, Lex Cyrus is expected to decide this week. I say expected because he was expected to decide a month ago. So things just change quickly. Something to keep an eye on. But for me and Dylan, that's another episode of the Penn State 365 podcast. Signing off.